Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of a double feature where we are looking at 1974 version of The Great Gatsby and comparing that to the 2013 version of The Great Gatsby. If you haven't gone and read our reviews at our website, go ahead and do that right now, and that will just help make this conversation make a bit more sense for you.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to ask two questions because one of them is sort of a cop-out question, but I feel like it's an important question because the whole point of this verse is to choose which one is superior, and I feel like you failed to do that.
I think I still prefer 2013.
Okay. Excellent.
As much as I like Robert Redford, his Gatsby isn't likable at all. His Gatsby is mopey, sullen, angry. Might be good looking, but that's where it stops. I think DiCaprio got sort of the people person aspect of Gatsby, and he was able to bring that out much better, because that's what Gatsby lives off of, is his charm.
Right.
So, anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
Final analysis, 2013.
All right, excellent. And actually, you touched on my second question, but I'll ask it and we can continue discussing it. So that was my second question was, Clayton does something very interesting to Gatsby that Luhrmann doesn't do. He makes Gatsby question Daisy in the beginning and say, why didn't you wait? Why didn't you wait? You know, what's the deal? What's going on? Like Luhrmann's Gatsby, it was the moment Daisy came back into his life. Yeah, it was a little awkward, but I mean, I'm here, I'm committed, I want to be with you. Okay, you still love me, excellent. We gotta go now tell Tom that you don't love him anymore.
Yeah.
So, which portrayal of Gatsby do you find more true to himself?
Yeah, well, I think it's in Luhrmann, we get that information from a flashback. And if we remember, DiCaprio's Gatsby does figure it out. He says, you didn't wait for me because of this. Because Tom rushed in. So, I mean, we could maybe infer that he asked that and he's now just throwing it back at her face. But I think it also works with the clippings that he's kept from her and those record books that he could have pieced two and two together. So if he's going to be stalking her that much through her life, and he already knew her prior to going off to war, it almost seems a little redundant to be asking those questions if he already knows the answers to. So I think that change I was okay with. I was fine to live with it because it was still able to hold some of that insecurity or that creepiness of Gatsby, that desperate clinging to the past and the way things were. That was in that grilling in the 74 version.
Yeah, see, I don't know. It was interesting because in the beginning, the Redford movie just kind of slow, took its time, and I was like, okay, this is fine. I didn't like Nick at all. His casting was terrible. Tom was just disgustingly casted horribly wrong, and I think you and I both agree on that point. I didn't like Daisy very much. I felt like Robert Redford, though, once that moment happened, I actually really started to like him. Whereas DiCaprio, for the whole time, he was competent. He just, the whole way through, this is my life, my life's got to be like this, it's got to be up there, I've got to keep moving up. Never a moment was his faith shaken, but I feel like that moment we got a little bit of faith shaken, and so he then becomes this interesting character, and I thought, okay, I want to see more Redford. Mm-hmm. But then I agree with you, though, that the chemistry between everyone in that film was just off.
But with that, on our website, Jerem was agreeing with me on this one, that the Luhrmann does such a good job in sort of focusing on of Gatsby, Daisy, and Nick just sort of hanging around, that the other characters suffer a little bit. So Jerem said he didn't understand why Jordan Baker was even in the film, where in the book, that's Nick's love interest. And in the 74 version, we see that, and we see that quite forcefully. Do you felt that hindered the story, or could we get around it?
As fantastic as the 2013 version is, we all know my opinion on that. I agree that the moment was a tad awkward at the end, where he's like, I won't come in. It was a little awkward. I didn't... Because you don't know if it's a reflection of himself, if it's a reflection of Tom, Daisy, if it's even a reflection of her. I mean, that's never explained. And so that's a little awkward, but I got to admit, I did like the playfulness throughout the 2013 version, that he was trying to sort of catch her, but like Gatsby's trying to catch Daisy, and yet neither of them succeed.
Yeah,
I thought that was interesting, and I liked that. I liked that they're both after these women who, in the end, they realize Daisy's going to stick with Tom, and Jordan is going to stick with Daisy.
Yeah. You see, I didn't get any of that playfulness. I'm a lost little boy. Hey, there's the things I know. I'm going to come and stand by you.
Right. Yeah, but I will admit to that, though, that even though there was, in my mind, there was that playfulness, that end moment, I didn't really understand where it was coming from, and so it made for sort of an awkward play between both of them. And then I just felt like an unresolved resolution, so we never see her again, so...
And we both know how much you don't like those untidy endings.
I know, gosh. Let me see, oh yeah. I have another question that I'm sure this will come... I'm sure you wrote this, well, you probably didn't write this with me in mind, but you wrote it thinking... Dagan's going to bother me about this. I know he is. Because I'm going to bother you about it. Okay. Why make those metaphors explicit and literal? Question mark. My question is, why not?
Well, I think it, as you said in your review, that the movie was both consistent and intelligent. And
Indeed it was.
And I think that's what started to really bother me, because it was not consistent. He seemed to just play fast and loose with whether or not he was going to make these metaphors literal metaphors or not. So when Nick is at the apartment and Tom is having his tryst, and he starts to have these visions of all of the different apartments, and he says he was on the outside and the inside. That is not meant literally. That's supposed to be he's in on this secret, but he cannot share it with anybody because it's not his secret. He's on the outside of it.
Right.
But instead of talking about the secret, they show him literally on the outside of the apartment looking at himself on the inside, and he just sort of waves his hat. I'm like, what is he doing? This is trying to take poetic language and make it literal, and what ends up happening is he has an acid trip. And you have this
well, he is in a sanatorium, so...
Yeah, apparently. we have this one moment where it is so jam-packed with trying to make every metaphor that he talks about a literal reality, and then it drops. And then the movie sticks with more or less out-and-out realism up until the very end, when the text starts falling as snow. I'm like, what? Where did this come from again? Now we're making things literal again? Why? It just seemed like he had some days that he said, you know what would be cool? Let's make our metaphors literal. And the next day he woke up and said, that was a stupid idea. I'm never going to do that again. Until the next week, he's like, do you know what would be awesome? Let's make our metaphors literal. And so we have it at this one little thing in the beginning, and then again at the very end, but nowhere else. So that's my definition of inconsistency. If I was going to criticize this film in another avenue, it would be that the first, we'll say 30 minutes, up until the apartment, is incredibly fast-paced moving. Or at least it's captivating. But then as soon as, we'll say he hits the speakeasy, their lunch date with Gatsby, the movie just sort of ends up just hits the brakes, and it goes so slow as soon as Daisy is introduced.
Right.
And we hit like a doldrum of the middle part where it just became realism, and a bunch of the style started fizzling out until the very end when the emotions come in, and then the action picked up, and then it started getting that fast-paced again. In another way, we could probably say, as long as Jay-Z was playing, the movie was going at a good clip, which LJ on Facebook agrees with me, that as long as Jay-Z is crunking away, the movie's good. All right, everybody, that does it for this week's episode of A Double Feature, and thanks so much for everybody who commented on our social media this week. It really helps in getting these episodes going and gives us more fodder to talk about, so it's just not the two of us bickering back and forth. We can now start disagreeing with each and every one of you, or agreeing as the case may be. Thanks so much, and keep it up. Come back tomorrow to find out what our next film is going to be. It's going to be foreign. It should be a good one. And as always, keep in touch with us during the week in social media as we post about movies, and check out our write-ups for the new film when they're posted. And as always, as my good friend Thane says, watch good movies. We will see you next week.